The silence in the house was deafening. Maya could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears as David stood by the door, his back turned to her. She wanted to reach out to him, to apologize, to make him understand, but the words wouldn't come. The distance between them felt as vast as the ocean, and she could feel it swallowing her whole. David had walked away from her, his retreat to the living room nothing more than an escape. She could hear him pacing, his breath ragged with anger and disbelief. Maya stood frozen in the hallway, her hands trembling at her sides. How could she have let it get this far? How could she have carried this burden for so many years? Finally, David spoke, his voice low and hoarse, as though he were struggling to keep his composure. I don't understand, Maya. I don't understand any of this. Maya's heart shattered at the pain in his words. She had known this moment would come, the moment when the truth couldn't be ignored any longer. But nothing had prepared her for how much it would hurt to see David so utterly broken. I never wanted this to happen, Maya said, her voice barely a whisper. I never meant for it to go this far. David's head snapped toward her, his eyes burning with a mixture of betrayal and fury. How could you do this to me? To us? 15 years of marriage, 15 years of a life built on lies. How could you keep something like this from me, Maya? Maya's throat tightened, and she fought back the tears that threatened to overwhelm her. I didn't know what to do. I was scared, David. I thought I could bury it. I thought if I just pretended, if I just made things work, maybe it wouldn't matter. But it does matter. And I am so sorry. David took a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. You've been lying to me for 15 years, Maya. 15 years. And now you want me to believe that it doesn't matter? That this doesn't change everything? I never wanted it to be like this, Maya pleaded, stepping closer to him. I love you, David. I always have. Lila is our daughter. She is. David's eyes searched hers for a moment, and for the briefest second, Maya thought he might understand, that he might see how hard this had been for her. But then his face hardened, the walls going up between them once again. No, Maya, he said, his voice barely a whisper. You don't get to ask me to forget this. You don't get to ask me to just forgive you. Not after everything. Maya recoiled as though he had slapped her. David, please. Please understand. I was young. I was lost. Nathan was part of my life before you. I made a mistake, a huge mistake. But I've spent every day since trying to make up for it, trying to be the wife and mother I should have been. I love you, David. And I love Lila. But the truth is the truth. I can't change it. David turned away, his back to her once more. And what about me, Maya? What about me? You've been living a lie, and I've been living in the dark. Every time I looked at Lila, I thought I was seeing my daughter. I thought I was raising her right, giving her the life she deserved. And now I find out that I was a fool. David, please, Maya whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted this. I never wanted to betray you. But David didn't respond. He stood still, his shoulders stiff, his posture rigid with the weight of the pain he was feeling. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, until Maya couldn't take it any longer. She stepped forward, her hands reaching for him, but he flinched away, as though her touch burned him. David, I'm sorry. Please. Please, let me explain. Let me make this right. David's voice was cold and distant when he spoke again. You can't make this right, Maya. Not anymore. You've taken something from me, something I can never get back. Maya's heart ached, the weight of her guilt threatening to crush her. She didn't know what she had expected, perhaps for him to understand, for him to somehow find it in his heart to forgive her. But she hadn't prepared herself for the depth of his anger, the rawness of the betrayal. She hadn't prepared herself for the fact that David might not be able to forgive her. I never wanted this to ruin us, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I thought if I kept it hidden, if I kept it buried, everything would stay intact. But it hasn't. And now everything is falling apart. David turned back to face her, his expression hardening once more. You didn't just keep it hidden, Maya. You kept lying to me. You kept pretending that everything was fine. You kept pretending that I was the father, that we were a family. And you didn't give me the chance to make my own choice. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes, but she held them back, determined not to let her emotions control her. I didn't think you could handle it. I didn't think I could handle it. I thought that if I told you, it would destroy everything we had built. But I see now that it's already destroyed." David's voice trembled with emotion, his pain palpable. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again, Maya. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Maya felt the room closing in on her, the suffocating pressure of David's words bearing down on her. This was the moment she had feared, the moment when the truth shattered everything. She had made a choice years ago, to keep the secret buried, to protect her family, to protect David. But now, she understood that there was no protection from the truth. The weight of the past was too much to bear. She could see it in David's eyes, the rawness, the hurt, the betrayal. And it wasn't just him she had hurt. It was Lila. It was their family. It was the life they had worked so hard to build. "David," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to destroy everything. I never wanted to hurt you." David didn't respond. He simply turned away again, the finality of his movements making it clear that the conversation was over, for now. The door had been opened, and Maya had no choice but to stand there in the aftermath of her choices, facing the consequences of a secret she could no longer hide. The days after the confrontation were some of the darkest of Maya's life. The house, once filled with the hum of daily routines and laughter, now felt empty and suffocating. The silence between her and David was deafening, a chasm so wide that no words seemed capable of bridging it. Maya had tried to talk to him, to explain herself, but every attempt had been met with cold silence or short, clipped responses. David had retreated into himself, spending hours at the office or going for long walks without saying where he was going. Maya knew he was avoiding her, and the distance between them grew with each passing day. Lila, too, had noticed the shift. Maya could see the concern in her daughter's eyes whenever they crossed paths. Lila had been quieter, more withdrawn, her mind clearly preoccupied with the unraveling of their family. She had tried to speak to her mother a few times, but Maya had been too consumed with guilt and shame to offer the reassurance Lila so desperately needed. Maya had never felt so alone. The truth had set her free in some ways, but in others, it had left her trapped, drowning in regret. It was late one evening when David came home earlier than expected. Maya was sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the TV, though she wasn't really watching. She'd spent the day doing housework, trying to keep busy to stave off the overwhelming sadness that clung to her like a second skin. David walked in, his tired eyes immediately meeting hers. There was no anger in his expression now, just a quiet, exhausted resignation. His voice was steady, but Maya could hear the rawness beneath it. "Maya," he said softly, "we need to talk." The simple statement sent a chill down her spine. It was the first time he had said anything that wasn't sharp or dismissive. Maya nodded, her hands trembling as she set down the remote control. "Okay." David sat across from her, his posture weary. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Maya could feel the tension in the room, thick and suffocating. The words they had exchanged days ago still lingered between them, unspoken, unresolved. Finally, David broke the silence. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About what you said, about Lila. About the past." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to say something, apologize again, beg for his forgiveness, but the words wouldn't come. All she could do was listen. "I won't lie to you, Maya," he continued, his voice quieter now. "I'm hurt. I'm angry. But there's something else. A part of me. I can't just throw away everything we've built." Maya looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you mean?" David ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I don't know if I can ever look at Lila the same way. I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you. But..." His eyes met hers, filled with something that resembled a mixture of sadness and hope. "But I'm not ready to walk away from this. From you. From our family." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "David, you mean that?" He nodded slowly, his gaze softening. "I don't know what the future holds. But I think I need time to process this. I need time to figure out if I can live with it. But I'm not ready to give up on us. Not yet." Maya's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and guilt. She didn't deserve his forgiveness, not after everything she had done, but in that moment, she realized that perhaps there was a way forward. It wouldn't be easy, and it certainly wouldn't be quick, but maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for their family. "I'm so sorry, David," Maya whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to destroy our family. Please believe me, I love you. I've always loved you." David sat back in his chair, rubbing his eyes, clearly exhausted from the emotional toll the past few days had taken. "I know you do. But love isn't enough, Maya. Love doesn't erase the lies, the betrayal. It doesn't undo the damage that's been done." "I know," Maya said softly, her voice filled with regret. "I know. But I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll fight for us, for our family. I promise you, David." David was silent for a long time, his eyes distant. Finally, he stood up, walking over to the window. Maya stayed seated, watching him as he stared out at the night sky. "I don't know how we get through this," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But I'm willing to try. For now. That's all I can promise." Maya stood up slowly, her legs unsteady beneath her. She walked over to him, her hand trembling as she placed it on his arm. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't let you down." David didn't say anything in response. Instead, he gently pulled her into his arms, and for a moment, they stood there together, not saying a word. The weight of the moment hung heavy between them, but there was something there, something fragile and tentative, that Maya hadn't felt in days. Maybe there was a way to rebuild what they had lost. Maybe not everything was beyond repair. The days that followed the conversation in the living room were filled with a quiet, uneasy truce. David and Maya had agreed, at least for now, to continue living together and trying to work through their issues, but the weight of what had been revealed still hung heavy in the air. They went through the motions of daily life, making breakfast, picking Lila up from school, having dinner, but there was a palpable distance between them, as if something had shifted that could never be fully repaired. Maya tried to act normal, to act like everything was fine, but she could feel David's coldness every time he passed her in the hallway or when they sat in the same room, too aware of the space between them. And yet, she clung to the hope that maybe, with time, they could find their way back to each other. She had to believe that. Because without that hope, what else was there? One evening, after a long day of running errands, Maya returned home to find David sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the papers scattered before him. He looked up when she entered, his face still weary but less guarded than before. "Hey," Maya said softly, trying to gauge his mood. "How was your day?" David didn't immediately respond. Instead, he pushed the papers aside, his eyes meeting hers with a kind of tentative vulnerability. "Maya, I've been thinking. A lot." Maya's heart skipped a beat, her chest tightening. She had learned to be cautious with him, knowing that every word, every action, carried more weight now than it ever had before. "What have you been thinking about?" she asked, sitting down across from him. David ran his hands through his hair, clearly conflicted. "I've been thinking about the future. About what happens next. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you completely, Maya. I don't know if I ever will. But I know I don't want to lose what we've had. I don't want to lose the family we've built." Maya's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she could barely speak. "David, I'm not saying everything is okay. I'm not saying I'm okay," David interrupted, his voice rough. "But I'm trying. I'm trying to figure out how to move forward. With you. With Lila. With the life we've had." Maya's eyes filled with tears, though she quickly wiped them away. She hadn't expected him to say that. She hadn't expected him to acknowledge that there might still be a way forward for them. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a crack in the wall that had been between them. "I'll do whatever it takes, David," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't want to lose you. I'll work every day to make it right. To earn back your trust." David nodded, his expression softening. "I believe you, Maya. But trust isn't something that can be fixed overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take us both putting in the work, and I don't know what that looks like yet." Maya leaned forward, her heart in her throat. "I'm willing to do the work, David. I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I want to try. I want us to be okay again." David looked at her for a long moment, the silence between them filled with the weight of everything they had been through. Finally he spoke, his voice quieter now, but with a softness that hadn't been there before. "We'll take it one step at a time," he said. And we'll see where it leads. The following weeks were a slow, fragile process. Maya and David had agreed to start over, but it wasn't easy. They still had awkward silences, still had moments where the past seemed too heavy to ignore. But slowly, they started to communicate more openly, to talk about their feelings, to acknowledge the pain they had both been carrying. David, while still hurt, began to open up more. He didn't hide in his work as much, and when Maya would sit with him to talk, he would actually listen. He wasn't ready to forget the betrayal, but he was beginning to see that rebuilding their relationship wasn't about erasing the past. It was about moving forward together, despite the cracks that now marred their foundation. Maya, for her part, threw herself into being a better partner and mother. She apologized to David every chance she got, not because she thought it would fix everything, but because she wanted him to know that she understood the weight of what she had done. She also spent more time with Lila, trying to make up for the emotional distance she'd created during the past few weeks. It wasn't just David she had to rebuild trust with, it was Lila too. It was hard. So much of what they had built felt fragile now, like it could shatter at any moment. But in the quiet moments, when Maya and David sat together in the kitchen or took walks with Lila, she began to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe they could get through this. Maybe they could heal. One evening, after a particularly difficult conversation about the future, Maya sat alone in their bedroom, looking through old photo albums. It was a habit she had whenever she needed to remember what had brought them together in the first place. As she flipped through the pages, her fingers brushing over pictures of their wedding, Lila as a baby, and countless family vacations, she was reminded of everything they had shared. The good, the bad, the ugly. And for the first time in a long while, Maya allowed herself to believe that the future was still possible. When David came into the room later that night, he paused at the doorway, watching her as she stared at the pictures. There was a softness in his eyes now, something she hadn't seen in weeks. "Hey," he said gently. Maya looked up, offering him a tired but genuine smile. "Hey." David walked over to the bed and sat down next to her. For a long moment, they didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their shared silence was a kind of understanding, one that said, "I'm still here, and I'm willing to try again." Finally, David spoke, his voice low but steady. "I think we're going to be okay, Maya. It's going to take time. But we'll get there." Maya's heart swelled in her chest, her relief palpable. "I think so too."